Welcome to Custom Home Builder Solutions, also known as CHS, a job costing, full accounting, and profit management software for the professional home builder. In this video, I am going to talk about a utility for the accounting table and the flat accounting table, and I'll tell you in a minute about why that's under utilities. First of all, we've always had all along an accounting activity. We've had an accounting database general ledger. In this video, I'd like to talk about how I have blended all the job costing features with the full accounting program, and in order to do that, we have this full accounting table that all of your records, like say if you enter an accounts payable bill, or post a check, or post a deposit, or post journal entries, and various things that go on that affect your accounting, they all end up in this one table. And we have had this all along, where you could open the whole table, or you could search for part of it and then open an accounting database. The whole table would be like this one, except we've narrowed it down to this current year, 2016. We did that in our search. But notice how this table is grouped and totaled by GL account number from your chart of accounts. And this is what's generally referred to as a general ledger. It's a ledger of everything in each one of your chart of accounts. So it's sorted and grouped together under the chart of account numbers, which is very good for looking at. And if you do reports, a ledger of transactions, it's going to be the same way. It's grouped by account number and the records for whatever filters you used. And we did a filter that was between these 2 years. I mean, just in the year 2016. And if you do just a range of dates like that, then that general ledger should total to 0, because this is a double entry set of books, and we're going to talk about that here in a minute. Now, if you narrow down your search to one particular vendor or some particular items, it may not total to 0. But I just did a year's worth of date, and you notice that when I opened that, it was grouped by general ledger account number. Now what I'd like to do, and it refers to this over here, that you could go under utilities and use the button for accounting table. And I'd like to go home, and I'd like to open our full accounting table and show you why it's here over under utilities, and how it's not grouped by GL account number, but it is sorted by the GL date and the document ID. And I'm going to go ahead and narrow down a search. One reason this is under utilities is because this is your full accounting database. If I did a search for just that year again, wrong field. And I submit the search. And I'm going to have the same number of records that showed when I did the accounting ledgers menu for that year. The one that's over under accounting, that is the ledger, it's showing the same number of records, but they are grouped by these GL account numbers. Again, I said that twice, but I just wanted to re-emphasize that. Now notice there's no groupings going on here, but it does show that my total for the year is 0. And the reason for that is this accounting table is based on a double entry accounting system. And you can see here that it will have debits, which are the positive numbers, and credits, which are the negative numbers. For example, this was a check that was printed. It has the same doc ID, the same date. And this opens sorted by date first, then by doc ID order, so that you can see the little, it's like miniature little what they call journal entries. There's an in and out that keeps your books in balance, and in and out that keeps your books in balance. And if you drill down, there are various journals going on. The AP journal is for accounts payable. And if you click on it, you can see the batch of entries. In that case, there are only 2. And that batch should, if your books are being kept in balance, should basically always be 0. We've looked at the whole year, and you can see some things that, for example, when this entry was posted in accounts payable, big buck, lot clearing, and a job code was selected, and a GL account number was selected. And by the way, you can hover over these things and see which GL account. Then when you posted it, CHS took care of posting something it calls an offset to that entry, which is a credit to your control account that you set up on your chart of accounts for accounts payable. CHS does this side of the entry for you when you post this bill to keep your books in balance. Now notice that when this entry is done, originally done, this line here keeps showing as unpaid because this is when it was originally posted, the very first entry that CHS does as an unpaid entry. But later when the check is posted, there'll be a debit to accounts payable that CHS handles that will be marked as paid. So if you just looked at your accounts payable general ledger account, you might see a whole bunch of these that say unpaid and wonder why and all that stuff. It's just because that's the original entry that CHS did. When you do a check, CHS will take this side of the original entry, your thing that you entered, and update it to paid and a check number and a cash account, that kind of thing. But anyway, if you decided you were going to do a report batched by this date and doc ID, you could do that here. And you can see basically sort of all these little journal entries. It takes a moment to get those all grouped and gathered and totaled. But you'll see all these little journal entries being, you can see here we did a doc ID and the journal was AJE, meaning that was an adjusting journal entry posted by the user, and CHS didn't have anything to do with the in and out debits. You do that when you do a journal entry. But all of these are totaling to 0, these batches. Now if you had searched, this report is based on a search, and you had told it to only show you some particular thing like a job code, you do that search, and we narrow this down to a job. Let's do our demo job, and only have records that have a job code in it. You'll now see a different total here. It won't be 0 because you don't have all the other sides of the entry, which would be to the H job. CHS is only holding the job code on your original entries and not putting them on your offset entries because it needs to use these original entries to just get those entries for job cost reports or for cash flow, etc. So when it posts the offsets to things like an accounts payable bill, it won't have the job code. Now let's do a search. Let's do a search again. Let's clear our search fields, and let's just look for one vendor. We'll stay sort of in the payables for a bit because that's such a big part of the program. Now if you do a vendor, and that's all you search for, and you don't narrow it down to a job, it should total to 0 also, because with accounts payable, CHS, when it's doing its offset entries, will also put the vendor in there. That's so that it can pick up things out of this accounts payable account and sum them together for that vendor to see if there's anything due, anything open or outstanding. It's some stuff going on behind the scenes. But let's take a look at this. Again, this is sorted by GL date and then by doc ID. So this particular entry down here, actually you can tell by the entry number, happened before the check, of course. You'd have to make the entry in before the check. So if you get it narrowed down to something like this, you might be interested in sorting differently than CHS opened it. In other words, in this case, maybe by entry number. And you'll see a little upward arrow thing showing that it is by entry number now. And there's the original entry for rough HVAC, the entry you posted, the offset entry CHS posted. Then here's a payables check for that happened actually on the same day. That's why, since this doc ID is actually before, when you sort before this doc ID, that's why they were sort of feeling upside down from each other. But you can see how CHS comes along and does an accounts payable check, takes it out of your cash account, that you select when you do the check, and also puts a debit into accounts payable that actually lowers accounts payable on your books. So that's what's meant by a double entry set of books. And so we create this whole accounting database, and I thought it might be really useful for you to be able to just search it, not grouped by GL number, but where you could, as an accountant or somebody who's interested in this, could search it and see all these little journal entry things going on. Now, one thing about it is, let's say Austin Air, say we were just interested, just in general, in entries that were posted to the job to group for Austin Air. So let's do that. To group, submit search. Now we won't be zero anymore. What we'll see actually is the total of your original entries that you made that had a job code of the group. And if there was some reason that you wanted to look up a vendor and look at all your original entries for one job code, it's easy to do this way. And so you can use this report here that's not batch by date and doc ID, which is just a basic list like we're looking at on the screen. You can use this to send these records to Excel. If you like, the Excel worksheet will be on your own computer. You can be saving it and doing whatever you like to it. Microsoft takes over when we send to Excel, so sometimes you may have to do, it's trying to put a timestamp in that date also. So I clicked on that column. I'm going to do Format Cells, and I'll do Date, and I just want this. The reason it has all the pound signs is because if you look at this one, the paid date, you can see it's trying to insert some time in there. So you could do that, format your cells, and do whatever else you need, if you know Excel, to these records. Delete columns you don't want, but you have your basic records in a pretty good Excel sheet that you can use for whatever you like, searching your entire accounting database. I'm not going to save that. Let's talk about one more thing. Let's search, and let's clear our search fields. Now, you'll notice on all sorts of job cost reports that it's telling you that what CHS does to produce your job cost reports is it combs through your whole database for the job that you requested on some other screens. And I'll do that on this screen. I'll ask for a job. And then for anything that has a cost code other than 0. So when you do entries into your accounting database, if you want it to be on a job cost report, you need to get a cost code on it other than 0. So if I just wanted to search my whole accounting database on my own, and of course there's all these tools in CHS for producing that does this for you, that looks for everything that doesn't have a 0. But if you wanted to do it on your own, you wouldn't want to go select all these cost codes besides the 0 one. You could do a greater than 0 right there, or a not equal to, and your search tips are down here, greater than 0. So I'm basically going to search for all accounting records that have been marked with this job and with cost codes greater than 0. And if I submit my search, you're going to see that that's what we've got. All the cost codes are not 0, and the job codes are here. And when CHS produces job cost reports, it does not care what GL account you use for your accounting data, for your accounting part of it. That's because builders will use various different kinds of accounting methods and might use 2 or 3 different GL numbers to post their job costs to. And I can't imagine trying to pull a job cost report and having somebody say, these are all the accounts I put job costs to, all the GL accounts, because I think it would kind of blow their mind. So what I do when I produce job cost reports for CHS is I comb this accounting database for everything with the job code you're interested in and cost codes other than 0. So you can see how these are now totaling to $189,975. And if I go home and I go to the actual cost database, and there's other places to get these job cost reports, and I select that Vista view, and then I open that database, it will actually be grouped and totaled by cost code for you, because now you're really just looking at your total costs in an actual cost database. But if I do a report of this, and let's just do job cost by job, then cost. And when you're doing all of these functions, CHS is doing that kind of search for you. And notice this report total, 189,975.67, is, if we go back to the accounting table, the same number that I just searched for to get that job cost information. So you can kind of see how that works. You might try doing a search for, when I talk about giving you job revenues, let's clear these search fields. Let's get our demo job back. I tell you that job revenues, the subsidiary report for job revenues, has nothing to do with the GL number. It has everything to do with just pulling from your database everything posted on the deposit window. And everything posted on the deposit window, all records are marked with the journal deposit. And that's how I can comb through and get the revenues that you have posted for a certain job and produce job revenue reports. And if I close it, whoops, I shouldn't have closed it, I should have searched. Now submit a search, and you'll see these revenues are 121,393.77. The reason they are in brackets looking like a minus number is because generally revenues or deposits, the offset deposits, are credits. The minus number actually doesn't really mean anything except that these have been posted to a certain kind of account that are normal credit balances. And we could discuss that more with a big accounting discussion, but the minuses just mean that they are credits. It doesn't mean they're minus to that account. And notice how two GL numbers are involved in these. So again, CHS, to get the job revenues, doesn't care what GL number you posted it to. It's looking for everything you posted for that job on the deposit window, except for entries you posted on the deposit window that are specifically marked as job costs, because they're a deduction from the deposit, maybe for closing fees or wire transfer fees. But if I go home and I look at job revenues that CHS is producing for you, Vista View, and it's telling you what it's looking for in your database here. And I open the revenues report, the revenues database, it's grouped and totaled by something called a deposit category. And if I do my results report here, to see those revenues, it's 121,393.77. CHS is presenting those nicely without dealing with debits and credits. An accounting table will. But that gives you a little idea of that. One other thing that you might be interested in, I'm not sure, but I just wanted to show you the power of this database. And again, you could just send all these to Excel and do anything you want to it. One other thing, if we do a search and we clear our search fields, if I was just interested in seeing what accounting records CHS is showing as unpaid accounts payable records, I might want to get all records, original records, that are marked as unpaid or to pay, and not the records actually that are in accounts payable. And that's how CHS actually looks for the invoices that should make up your accounts payable total. So if we do accounts payable trade here, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to search for not accounts payable trade, and we submit a search. That's just going to show us all records that have been posted to that accounts payable trade. And right now, they are summing up to 66,048.33. Now, if I want to see the original records that make up this total in accounts payable, because accounts payable will have in and out, in and out. You know, you post your original entry, then you do a check. Here's an entry that you posted, then you do a check, you know, that kind of thing. If you want to see the original entries that are still unpaid, you would ask, let's get this back to no selection, you would ask for not equal to 2110, because you want the other side of the entries, not the ones posted to accounts payable. And you go over to do your status. Your paid status would be either they're marked as to pay or they're marked as unpaid, and then I do a search, you can actually see that this is the other side of the entry. It's a debit for $66,048.33. If we go home and we go to unpaid payables and we do a list of all unpaid payables, that's actually the search that CHS does for you behind the scenes, the search that we just did. All original entries so we can see their cost codes and job codes. We're not wanting to look at the offset entries, and these are grouped and totaled by vendor over here in your accounts payable tools. But CHS just did that same kind of search that you just did to gather the records and then group them. And you, of course, could send this to Excel. Now, the reason this is under utilities is if you click this right now, when you open it, you'll be told that only a CHS support staff person can do this. And if you're having some particular issue you just can't solve any other way, something just, who knows what, just got so messed up, or you deleted and then redeleted, and you just go, man, and you just did it a couple days ago and you wish they weren't there anymore, and you wish you could just get rid of those records out of your accounting database. You didn't want them in the first place. You can call us and ask us if we can do that for you. We'll first discuss whether we should just use the tools that are controlling and auditing, what you're doing. But there is an occasion that we will agree to go ahead and come in and put in our password and go ahead and just delete. The reason you can't do this is because there's no checking going on here to make sure your books are kept in balance, and you need a CHS support staff member. For example, let's do the search, clear our search fields, go back and ask for Austin Air, and submit that search. If I allowed you to just delete Austin Air, you're going to throw your books out of balance. We need both of these sides deleted when we do something like that, but then we also need to look and see if it's paid, and then we need to look for the check that was paid, see if it was for the same amount, and feel comfortable that we're going to say delete all 4 of these records. And if you've been doing deletions and reeditions, there might be more records where CHS is putting things in and out. So we need to control that. We couldn't provide good support if we just let this table get open and be adjusted willy-nilly by users, because you could get yourself in a real mess. But that's why this is under utilities, and I also like to mention that you should feel real comfortable that we can actually fix almost anything in your database. We'd like you to do it using our tools. We would discuss that with you if you called and say there's ways for you to do that rather than doing it this way. But if you'll notice, if we do this and we do something like delete records or click to edit and do something in particular to the record for you, there will be an audit of it that you can see. I've been doing some of it to test. You can see record deleted by CHS support staff. It'll store the amount and the information about that record. We're also likely, if you call us and ask us to do that, we will make a copy of your, let's go back to our accounting table, of your full data file with all your tables and everything before we get in here and do some of this background maintenance for you. So anyway, that's what this tool is about. That's why it's under utilities, but it can also be, if you're an accountant and stuff or something, wanting to search for who knows what, there's all kinds of search fields that you can use to search by and look for various things that you need to look for in your database, and then do this report here to send those records that you searched for to Excel. So I hope that helps. I know as me being an accountant, etc., I like to just sometimes get into a flat table that's not sorted by anything, that I can just look at to see all the records and click to sort them as I need and search for things I need. And thank you for watching.